What can the Washington Wizards expect from Marcus Smart, and where does he fit in their overall plans? Today, I got some help from my homeboy over there, Locked On Grizzlies. Come on, you guys know what it is. Next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter, introducing the Locked On Wizards Daily Newsletter, a one-stop for the ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your box. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with all new free Locked On Wizards newsletter. All right, everybody, today we're going to chop it up about Marcus Smart, because I think that was the best move at the deadline for a very busy trade deadline for the Washington Wizards. But don't take my word for it. We have the expert on Marcus Smart, my guy, Joe Mullinax from Locked On Grizzlies. How you doing tonight, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm making a man with 9-44, so hey, you can find the positives where you can, man.
I think I've told you in the past, but I live in the Richmond, Virginia area. I'm from Northern Virginia, Manassas, and I'm a DC DMV guy, and watching the Wizards struggle is painful from afar and from up close, all in the same time, covering the Grizzlies and obviously being a little more local to the region. So it's tough out there right now for Wizards fans.
Yeah, it's all about the journey, right? I mean, obviously, younger team now, 4 trades at the deadline, very active. New general manager Will Dawkins, very, very busy at the deadline.
Sure.
So right now, it's all about the youth movement, and it's definitely a younger team. But like I said, it's all about the journey, and we're definitely heading in the right direction. But key acquisition in this year's trade deadline, Marcus Smart. So starting things out, we're gonna look at the trade real quick. Now, looking at the framework of the trade, the Washington Wizards acquired guard Marcus Smart in exchange. Oh, and including a 2025 first-round pick. Definitely appreciate that. Also coming from was the Kobe Jones, guard Kobe Jones, that is, and center Alex Len, who was subsequently waived by the team. The Washington Wizards did send Marvin Bagley III, Johnny Davis, and a 2025 second-round pick to the Memphis Grizzlies. And the Grizzlies also sent Jake LaRavia to the Sacramento Kings in exchange for a 2028 second rounder to the Grizzlies, man. So real quick, what do you grade the trade, and what did you like and dislike about this move?
Well, I agree that it's a good trade for the Wizards, if for no other reason that you guys are trying to accumulate first-round picks, right? Getting those assets, trying to get younger. Smart obviously doesn't get you younger, but you do get that extra first-round pick. The biggest takeaway for me, and this might be where Wizards fans get a little bit upset with me, if anything, the most shocking part to me was just how far Marcus Smart has fallen. He has not logged a considerable amount of playing time over the last couple of years. He's often been injured. Jay Huff, who just recently got converted in the last several months from a two-way deal to a standard contract, he played more games in the last 4 months for the Memphis Grizzlies than Marcus Smart has the last year and a half. So I think that Wizards fans should maybe, if they haven't already done so, Wizards fans are a smart bunch, I would do your research on who you've taken on here. Because this is not the Marcus Smart from Boston. Zach Kleiman, the Memphis Grizzlies general manager, came out in a press conference and had one of the most honest press conferences I think I've ever heard a GM have, essentially admitting that he made a mistake trading for Marcus Smart, and the team had to cut their losses before it got worse. So I don't know that, again, you might think that you're getting this leader who has veteran experience. That's all still true, right? Obviously, he had a lot of success in Boston. If you value that as a young team that's rebuilding I think it's a good trade in that way, in addition to the pick. But if you're expecting to bring in the guy that helped the Boston Celtics get to the NBA Finals, the Memphis Grizzlies, who have made some mistakes, but they've had pretty good drafts as well the last several years. That's one of the reasons they're one of the best teams in the NBA. The Memphis Grizzlies coaching staff and front office is betting that Marcus Smart is washed. And, it's a place where Malcolm Brogdon exists and other Wizards. It might be the land of the washed, but it's important to keep that perspective. It's a great deal in terms of getting assets, but at the same time, I would not expect much from Smart. If he's on the court, he'll have flashes of brilliance. He's also going to go 0 for 6 from 3 a lot.
Okay. It's kind of like the same situation with Chris Middleton. I mean, obviously, you're not getting your prime Marcus Smart.
I would say Middleton's better than Smart at this point, obviously. But yes, you're not getting your prime Chris Middleton. I would 100 times out of 100 take Chris Middleton over Marcus Smart, even with that contract.
Oh, very interesting, because like I said, from a lot of Bucks fans and a lot of people that cover the Bucks, it's kind of the same sentiment with Chris Middleton, where he's not the same guy. He's lost a step, but you can still kind of produce to a certain degree. But the biggest thing is mentorship for a very young Wizards squad. So, I mean, looking at Marcus Smart, you mentioned he's not your Boston Celtics Marcus Smart. He's definitely moved that as being, kind of rethink, by the Grizzlies front office. Now, looking at what he brings to DC, what does Marcus bring to the Wizards, both on the court and in the locker room?
His biggest value is going to be that leadership piece, right? I think Middleton still has something to offer you. Maybe he's not the best player on the Wizards anymore. He doesn't have that kind of step. He's still a starter in the NBA. Marcus Smart is not a starter in the NBA anymore. He is a veteran presence. He's a guy who is going to bring energy when he comes on the floor. The things that he has control over, if that makes sense, his effort, his attitude, the way that he carries himself. You cannot say enough good things about the professionalism that Marcus Smart carried himself with while he was a member of the Memphis Grizzlies. He's not a cancer. He's someone who's going to come in and be a positive locker room contributor. On the court, he's not going to give you much. First off, because he hasn't proven that he's able to be available. He has missed, I think it's something like 65 roughly % of the Grizzlies games since he was traded for by Memphis from Boston. So the Grizzlies tied up 2 first-round picks to bring him to Memphis and then had to give a 3rd first-rounder just to get off of his contract. We were thinking in Memphis, at least I was, I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, Cam Johnson from the Nets, and obviously a lot more would be needed, but Kevin Durant from the Suns, and Jimmy Butler was rumored to Memphis for no good reason. And Marcus Smart was the common denominator in terms of being the biggest, theoretically decent basketball player. It turned out that the Memphis Grizzlies had to pay the Wizards to take on Smart. So I think that you can't expect much from him basketball-wise. He can be a spark off the bench. The interesting thing with Marcus is, again, in Memphis, the Grizzlies are one of the 5 or so best teams in the NBA, right? So saying to Marcus Smart, hey, it's in the best interest of the team for you to come off the bench, that's a heck of a lot easier to do in Memphis as opposed to Washington, who, no offense, you watch them all the time, one of the worst teams in the NBA. That's going to be a harder sell for him, I think. So I'm curious to see how that dynamic plays out, but I do think he's going to carry himself with professionalism. You mentioned how young your key core guys are. He's going to teach them how to be pros. He's going to have that value to him. Obviously, he is in the last year of his deal this coming offseason, going into 2025, 2026. Maybe he's a guy you buy out if you think he's washed and you just kind of want to move on from him. Or you have an expiring contract, you send him to somebody else, a la Chris Middleton, and get additional resources to help clean up somebody's cap, their salary books down the road. And you can't count on him to be a basketball contributor. If you are, you're going to be disappointed. If you go into it with the mindset, this is a guy who can theoretically still play basketball, he'll be a good mentor for this young team, this young nucleus that we're building. You're going to have a top lottery pick, hopefully number 1. I'm rooting for you, right? But you're going to have a top pick. You want those guys to be in solid professional spaces, and Smart is absolutely going to contribute to that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously looking at the deal, the star of the show is 1st-round pick. Now, looking at what Will Dawkins is doing, general manager Will Dawkins comes from the Oklahoma City Thunder, where they own most of the 1st-round picks in the NBA. They're known to, carry on a lot of draft capital, a lot of young prospects. And when you look at the type of players they bring on, very versatile players. But, looking at Marcus Smart, again, the key part of this deal was that 2025 1st-round pick. But we're, looking at where he fits, look at that second unit. We got Bub Carrington, where he spot started. And then you have Malcolm Brogdon. Looking at where he fits, like you said, expectations of him playing, you kind of got to be realistic at this point. But, is 6 man still realistic, or do you see him probably getting 10, 15 minutes a night and being exclusively a mentor here in DC?
I mean, you want to be a bad basketball team, right? That's kind of the point. I think that he could be a 6th man if you are having him on a bad basketball team. When Memphis acquired him, he was supposed to be the starting small forward, right? It was supposed to be, because it was in exchange for Tyus Jones, who, as I always like to say, is the best substitute teacher in the NBA. Tyus was not a good reserve, but he was very good filling in for Ja when Ja was going through what Ja was going through, injury, off the court, whatever. Tyus Jones was a good starting point guard. That's one of the reasons he's there in Phoenix, getting the opportunity that he has with the Suns. It was supposed to be Morant, Bane, Smart, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Steven Adams, and then obviously now Zach Edey. That was supposed to be the starting group. Didn't really materialize because of injuries and all these other things. And when Smart was in the lineup, he was inconsistent as a shooter. A lot of the stuff that Boston Celtics fans would get frustrated with Marcus Smart was amplified in the minutes that he played for the Grizzlies. Again, flashes of brilliance, the effort, the attitude, those things that he has control over, that's still going to be there. But if you want him to be a primary facilitator of offense, it's going to end very poorly. If you're cool with him being secondary or even tertiary, and he's a second or third option in terms of starting offensive sets, moving the ball like the hockey assist kind of idea, he definitely can do that. In terms of defending a team's best player in spurts, I think that area of his game is less washed than the offensive one. Because again, so much of defense, especially in the regular season NBA, is effort, right? Yeah. That's still there. So I think that he could still give you some of that. Maybe in a closing lineup, he comes in, defends the opposing team's best player, gives you the best chance. I know you got Koulibaly, I think that's how you pronounce it, and others who maybe you want in that role more than Smart for experience purposes. But I do think that he can give you some things defensively. He's going to play with great effort. He's going to be a good role model. If you're trying to be a bad basketball team, which, again, no offense, the Washington Wizards are a bad basketball team, kind of by design, as you alluded to, that is a good role for Smart, being that sixth man kind of guy. And it's important to remember, again, the Wizards are my secondary team being in the area. For years, people complained about picking a direction, right? Yeah. Bradley Beal, are you going to trade this guy? You stop being mediocre or below average. If you're going to do this, do it. You can't be mad at the guy now that he's actually doing it. And I don't think you guys are. So if you come into it with the clear eyes and full hearts that Marcus Smart is not going to save you, I think that you're going to be fine with what he brings to the table. He'll show some good things. He'll be that good role model. And you're still probably going to lose, which is the goal that you're looking for, at least at this point of the rebuild.
Yeah, losses are definitely the expectations, especially.
Yeah, I mean, so that's then what are we talking about, right? Like bring on the guys that other teams don't want. That's the definition of a rebuild, right? You're getting assets, you're bringing in these pieces. He's not going to be a cancer. It's not like you traded for Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler or some Dylan Brooks, somebody that might come in and be disenfranchised. He's not going to be that guy. So in that way, it was a smart move for Washington to do this.
No, I agree 100%. I think that if you check your expectations and let him do what he was brought here to do, which is mentor and really bring some toughness to, especially these young guards above Carrington, Jordan Poole. Right. I think once if he fits that purpose and really does it well, I think we're definitely still heading in the right direction. Because again, you're not getting the same guy in Boston, and same argument with Chris Middleton. Guy who, if he was still that guy in Milwaukee, he wouldn't be with the Wizards, right? So I'm with you. I think you definitely need to be realistic with expectations. So next, we're going to talk about buyout candidate, or should they keep him around for a while? But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by OpenPhone. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone. And before you know it, you're juggling customer calls day and night. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number, that is. That's where OpenPhone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help you keep your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you can get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. OpenPhone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. It's that easy. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. So right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months. When you go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA, that's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA for 20% off 6 months. OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no additional cost. All right, before we get out of here, man, real quick, kind of mention what his fit is, and we still have Malcolm Brogdon on the roster. Similar guy, where Malcolm Brogdon is not so much a talent standpoint. Former 6 Man of the Year award winner. He's played with Marcus Smart. The guy who, again, when he's on the court, produces, but injuries have been a concern, and I think there's a big reason why he was not dealt at the trade deadline, because a lot of teams were hesitant to take on a guy with a price tag of $22.5 million who may not even be available for the playoff push. So, looking at, we already got Malcolm Brogdon. Do you see Marcus Smart, if you're the GM, if you're Will Dawkins, do you see Marcus Smart as a guy who could definitely, be a contributor, whether it's mentoring or, spot starting or a 6-man or, here and there? Or would you look at trying to buy him out?
I would try to trade him again, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that if he comes into Washington and has a really solid couple of months, because that's the deal. That's what Memphis Grizzlies fans are struggling with, right? You take on John Davis, who may get waived, may not get waived, hasn't been officially announced yet. Marvin Bagley will probably figure into the end of the big rotation, kind of a break glass in case of emergency, athletic, hopefully dunk spot kind of guy. But Bagley, at least for the rest of the year, will be in Memphis. And Bagley's in a similar boat, obviously, just with one less year on his deal. He's trying to show that he can still play at this level. In the case of Smart, if he's able to recoup some of that value and display a lot more than just flashes of what he was in Boston, then you can move him to a contender and maybe get another first-round pick down the line. It's all about regaining those assets. I think that's one of the interesting things about what the Wizards are doing is they're taking a flyer on a guy like Smart. They basically got paid to do so. And if it works out, then they can get even more value out of him from a team like the Lakers, who all of a sudden have their 2031 first right under control again. We'll see how the Williams stuff works out. But the Lakers still have their first round pick this offseason that they could theoretically send if Marcus Smart shows that he can be the guy that can potentially help the Lakers in this new Luka LeBron era. There's other teams you can go up and down the list that Smart theoretically, the Bucks being one of them, right, make a lot of sense in terms of the archetype of what Smart could be, but he has to show that he can be that. So I do think Washington will present that opportunity, if for no other reason, that if he is that guy, they can recoup even more of that value and get even more out of Smart in a trade. If the Memphis Grizzlies are right and Smart is washed, you buy him out. I don't know what value he would have. You have all these picks. I believe Middleton is under contract another year as well. So if you have Middleton and you have Smart, and Middleton shouldn't be as washed as Smart. I've watched them both play this year. That would be my assessment. I would hold on to Middleton, and he's that guy that kind of plays out his contract. And you move off from Smart, you open up a roster spot and utilize those draft picks to bring in more young players. Or you do what you did with Marcus and you take on somebody's bad contract again, and you keep gaining those assets. That's the Oklahoma City way, as you mentioned a moment ago. So I think a lot of it has to be wait and see. I wish I could give you a better answer, but the reason it's wait and see is we haven't seen enough of him in Memphis. If he was the guy that he was in Boston, he would not be a Washington Wizard. He would be starting against the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Clippers to close out the All-Star break. But the Grizzlies have become disenfranchised with what Marcus Smart could have been solely from a playing perspective. I want to stress that, not a professional one. He just wasn't available, and when he wasn't able to provide the Grizzlies what they needed. Plus, the Grizzlies have Vince Williams Jr. The Grizzlies have Gigi Jackson, Scottie Pippen Jr. Memphis has hit on a lot of their two-way contracts and second-round picks. They didn't need Marcus Smart anymore. At least they don't think that they needed this version of Marcus Smart and the opportunity cost that would have inhibited them from doing further business in the summer. So it's a wait-and-see kind of thing. It made sense for the Grizzlies to do it. I wish they got more back than Bagley and Davis. But at the same time, you have to pay something to get off of a contract that is not expiring, and that's where the Grizzlies are. So I think it's a wait and see. You got to give him opportunity to play, and hopefully he recoups from some of that value and shows, the NBA what he's capable of.
No, I agree 100%. I think wait and see is definitely the best strategy right now for the Wizards, not only for Marcus Smart, but again, Chris Middleton, because again, we still have one more year after this year, and they will be expiring contracts next year. But I do think that Marcus Smart does cancel out Malcolm Brogdon, because we've dealt with a lot of injuries for Malcolm Brogdon. And again, he can produce when he's on the court, but he's been hurt time and time again. So I would definitely.
And he isn't expiring, right? Brogdon's done after this season.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. After this year, he is a free agent. So
that probably means Brogdon's gone. That's a safe bet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would definitely expect that they're going to buy out Brogdon, see if he can catch on with a contending team and go from there. But I'm with you. I think you wait and see, because if you can try to get some trade value for Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton, you flip them next year in the offseason, in my opinion. And, again, with Malcolm Brogdon, you can rest assured waiving him, because you have a young guard in A.J. Johnson we just picked up from Milwaukee. We have Bub Carrington. We have got Jordan Poole. So we've got enough young depth here. but you still need those veteran guys. And like I said, I think that Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart, like you both alluded to, you alluded to, they're not those prime guys you're getting from Boston and Milwaukee, respectively. But for a team like the Washington Wizards, where you need that mentor guy, the guy to come in, really teach toughness. There's a video that I just saw that, it showed that Marcus Smart was working with Jordan Poole, a guy who his defense has definitely gotten better from last year, because last year he was practically unplayable on the defensive end. Now he shows more energy in the defensive end. So, like I said, when you, in closing, you have to check your expectations. My expectations are, they're brought here to be mentors, contribute here and there, but you're not expecting them to be those key contributors. Definitely here to mentor. And I think that if you can still find that playing time for them, get their value up and flip them in the offseason, again, there's more picks, because I think that a lot of teams will be willing to give up first round capital for guys who just, if they've shown they can still do the job, you can get some value out of them. And right now, the biggest key to this rebuild is draft capital and young prospects. And we saw that at the trade deadline with general manager Will Dawkins, picking up a young prospect in AJ Johnson, Kobe Jones, and then draft picks. And, we got first round picks in 25 and 26, 2 loaded drafts, which you definitely expect the Wizards could probably gonna be in the top 5 for both of these drafts, man. So, like I said, I expect this front office, they have to hit in these next couple drafts. So I'm with you, man. I think that's the message that we're kind of, in closing, going to instill in Wizards fans, which are be excited, but definitely, kind of be real with your expectations. Again, you're not getting a guy who's going to be a key contributor. He's a guy who's brought here exclusively to be that mentor, veteran guy in the locker room. So, again, man, appreciate you coming on. Like I said, coming on, chopping up with me. I know you run on over there in Locked On Grizzlies. What, where else can people find you real quick?
Sure. I contribute over at Grizzlied. I'm on X at Joe Mullinax. I'm doing all sorts of writing. I write our newsletter. I know some folks use all sorts of other ways to produce the newsletter. I write it each and every day. So go to lockedondaily.com, subscribe to the Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. It's written words from me each and every day. Make sure you're subscribing to the Locked On Wizards one too. Of course, lots of great newsletters going on out there. But I'm writing and podcasting. Me and my co-host Michael Cole, we every single day talking Grizzlies basketball, and it's fascinating to keep that in mind, that the Grizzlies got younger after trading Smart. The oldest guy on their roster now is Luke Kennard at 28 years old, and yet they are a top 5 team in the West, in the NBA, and a top 2 team right now in the Western Conference. So it's a really fun team to watch, and if you want to follow along, if Wizards fans want a team to follow in the playoffs coming up, at Joe Mullinax, Locked On Grizzlies, come hang out with us.
See, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually write my newsletter too, man. I just feel better taking those thoughts out of my head and put it on paper. You know what I mean? So I'm with you on that, man. Great minds think alike. So again, man, always a pleasure. Definitely appreciate you taking time out of your day or night to come on here and chop it up with your boy, man. So like I said, check my guy out at Locked On Grizzlies. Any news in the Memphis Grizzlies, definitely check my guy out. He should be your go-to source, straight up. So again, appreciate you coming on. All right, everybody, we'll catch you tomorrow night. We're going to recap the Wizards' last game till the All-Star break. So definitely 9:30, definitely tune in. So again, thanks to my guy Joe Mullinax coming on the show. Hail to the Wizards, and peace. See you guys tomorrow night.